All right, today we are jumping into a really cool corner of cybersecurity, network behavior analysis. We're going to break down how it works, what it's really good at, and just as important, what its limitations are. So let me ask you this. What happens when the biggest threat to your network is something totally new? A brand new attack that no one's ever seen before. How on earth are you supposed to stop a threat you can't even name? Well, that's the big catch with a lot of traditional security systems. They're basically like a security guard standing at a door with a list of known troublemakers. If your face is on the list, you're not getting in. But if you're a new threat, you could just waltz right by. That's the hard limit of what we call signature-based security. So, if a list of suspects just isn't going to cut it, what do? Well, you don't need a guard, you need a detective. And in the world of cybersecurity, that detective has a name: network behavior analysis. Okay, so what is it really? Think of it as a system that's watching your network all day, every day. But here's the twist. Its first job isn't actually looking for bad guys. Its first job is to just learn what's normal, to build this super detailed picture of the regular day-to-day pulse of your network. And that right there is the key difference. This system couldn't care less about names or signatures. It's all about behavior. It's like a detective who's walked the same beat for years. They know the neighborhood so well that they can spot something that's just off. A car that's not supposed to be there, someone trying doors they shouldn't be. That's the idea. So how does this digital detective actually work? How does it go from just watching traffic to actually flagging a real threat? Let's get into the process. It's really this constant four-step loop. First, it monitors everything, just gathering up all that network data. From that data, it builds a baseline of what's normal, and it's always updating it. Then it starts to analyze all the new live activity, constantly comparing it against that baseline. And finally, if something strays too far from normal, bam, it detects it and flags it as a potential threat. Now, to gather these clues, the system has two main ways of working. On one hand, you've got direct monitoring. Think of this like a full-on wiretap. It looks at every single piece of data for maximum detail, but man, it takes a ton of resources. The other option is analyzing flow data, which is more like getting traffic summaries from your routers. It's way more efficient and gives you a broader view, letting one sensor cover a huge area. And this is how it all comes together. This is how the detective cracks the case. It doesn't see a DDoS attack. It sees a completely insane, out-of-the-blue flood of traffic to one machine. It doesn't see a worm. It just sees a bunch of computers that never talk to each other suddenly start chatting away. It can even catch someone breaking the rules inside your network, like a regular laptop suddenly trying to act like a server. It's all about spotting that weird, abnormal pattern. Okay, so spotting a threat is one thing, but stopping it? That's the whole point, right? So what happens after the alarm bells go off? How does this thing actually fight back? Well, it's not just a passive observer. This system can actually take action. It can step in and kill a suspicious connection on its own. It can act like a temporary firewall and just start dropping the bad traffic. Or it can tell your actual firewall or routers, hey, you need to update your rules right now and block this thing. You can even program it to run custom scripts for really specific situations. And this is a really big but, you have to be super careful with these automated tools. Why? Because what if the system gets it wrong? A false positive could mean blocking a critical business process, and that could cause a massive headache. So in the real world, these automatic defenses are often saved for only the most obvious, clear-cut threats. And that brings us perfectly to the system's limits. Because like any detective, it's not foolproof. It has some real challenges and blind spots that we absolutely need to talk about. Remember that trade-off between monitoring methods? Well, it creates a huge potential problem: time delays. Analyzing every single packet happens in real time, which is great, but that more common, efficient method using flow data, it often gets its info in batches, maybe every minute, maybe even every half an hour. A really fast attack can get in, do its damage, and get out before the system even knows what hit it. And then there's the other big issue. Networks are always changing. You add a new server, you roll out a new app. That's a new, legitimate behavior. But to the system, at first, that change might look suspicious, and it'll trigger an alert. This means you need a skilled person who can tell the difference between a real threat and, just a regular Tuesday at the office. So, after looking at how it works, what it's good at, and where it stumbles, what's the final verdict on network behavior analysis? To put it as simply as possible, you can think of it as a proactive security detective for your network. Its whole reason for existing is to know your environment so intimately that it can spot trouble brewing long before it ever becomes a full-blown crisis.
Where does it really shine? It's fantastic against loud attacks, the kinds of threats that generate really weird patterns or just huge amounts of traffic. We're talking about things like DDoS attacks and self-spreading worms. Those are the behaviors that just scream abnormal when compared to a baseline.
But its greatest strength, the whole reason this technology is so important, is its power to find the complete unknown. By focusing on how something is acting instead of what it is, NBA gives you a fighting chance to catch that brand new, zero-day threat, the one that has no name and isn't on anyone's list. And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. As cyber attacks get smarter, stealthier, and harder to predict, is focusing on behavior the only real way we have to stay one step ahead of the game? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.